there was one recording I did, and so I still have to do collab recordings, um, occasionally where we're doing something that's not recorded on stream, and I'm so paranoid I'm gonna screw something up. Like, the most recent time was, like, 3 years ago. Cleo and I recorded something, and I'm like, "Well, I accidentally left my webcam on in the corner," and Cleo's like, "Well, that's fine," like, sometimes YouTubers have their faces, and I'm like, "Yeah, I didn't have a shirt on, so I think we need to re-record that."
Welcome back to the show. There's no telling where we'll go. So come and share a laugh on the Imp and Skizz podcast.
We're back for another episode, and we're going to get right at it. Look at that green screen we got going on. We got Joe Hills on the show. Joe, thank you for giving us your time and joining our show today, bud.
Yeah, welcome.
Howdy, Skizz. Howdy, Imp. Thanks so much for having me all the way from Nashville, Tennessee.
It's good to have you, man. So our last guest that we had on was Cleo, and it just made sense for us to have you guys back to back because you guys have been obviously friends since, I guess, before Hermitcraft even started, right?
Oh, yeah, we used to fight face-to-face, then we fought back-to-back. Now it makes sense we'll appear on the podcast back-to-back.
There you
Yeah,
go.
that's a fair point,
Perfect,
actually. Yeah.
perfect. I mean, she told us a few stories about a coup that was led by you and stuff. So we're going to obviously want to hear more about that. But before we get started, we like to not assume that everybody just automatically knows who everybody is, even though they probably do. But if you could let everybody know who you are, what you do, and just a brief introduction kind of thing.
That's totally fair. I generally assume nobody has any idea who I am. It constantly surprises me
Come on.
when a kid at the grocery store points at me and is like, "Oh, that's Corinne's dad." Because, yeah, no, they know me from picking kids up from school, not from
Okay,
Minecraft.
got it, got it, got it.
Like that's part of living in a community, I guess. Is that, you don't, nobody knows what you do. And in my case, I make Minecraft videos on the Hermitcraft server. I also do a little bit of songwriting and poetry writing. I've done all sorts of other weird things in the past, like cartooning. I developed a tabletop role-playing game called Pitfalls and Penguins back between D&D 4 and D&D 5. There was kind of a fall-off in kind of the general tabletop space at that point, and I was like, ooh, here's an opportunity to do something funny. So I just kind of do whatever makes sense at the time. And luckily on Hermitcraft, what makes sense at the time is usually pretty bonkers. So I fit right in.
Very artistic.
Yeah,
very artistic
no
background.
question.
So you've been artistic by nature since you were little, or is this something you kind of grew into?
I think I was always fairly creative and artistic, but generally in an unhelpful and obnoxious way, which is fine. Apparently, that was part of the reason I was invited to join Hermitcraft, actually, because Generic B, the guy who founded Hermitcraft, came to me one day. I didn't even know who he was. And he's like, okay, so I'm trying to make a new Mindcrack, and I've got the best builders and the best redstoners, but I need like a wild card. I need somebody who just is gonna make trouble. And I'm like, okay, sure.
That's
And
awesome.
but yeah, as a kid, it's kind of hard to see a path for like where you're gonna go creatively. How do you make a living doing this stuff? My dad was a truck logician. He would like route trucks, matching drivers up with loads, warehouses that needed things out of there, places that needed things delivered, trying to make sure that nobody was driving without a full truck behind them at any time, a full trailer. So, I was like, I'm probably going to end up doing something like that. But because if you don't have a family where everybody's artistic and making money doing art, it's like there's no clear path. And when I was in middle school, I thought like talk radio, that might be for me. Maybe I'm gonna go into talk radio one day. And by the time I got to high school, talk radio was dying. By the time I got to college, it was essentially collapsed. So here I am doing 2 shows a day on Twitch and YouTube, basically kind of like a talk radio show, but while I play Minecraft.
So let me rewind a little bit. So were you were already making Minecraft videos, and then Generic B approached you then? That's correct. Okay, so you had a YouTube channel. You started in 2011. You're over 170,000 subs right now, and he approached you because you were already releasing. Did you ever see it turning into what it turned into?
Not really. Because for one thing, people ask me a lot of times, like, Joe, how did it feel to be invited to join Hermitcraft? Because like Skizz, that video of Impulse inviting you to join Hermitcraft
Yeah.
is amazing, and it's such a big moment. But when this guy I didn't know messaged me saying, "Hey, I'm making this Minecraft server for YouTubers," I'm like, "This sounds like a scam." This sounds like back in the day with webcomics, there'd be people that are like, "Hey, I'm renting a server and I'll host your comics on my server. You just need to sign this contract that gives me all your intellectual property, but I'll bury that part."
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You know?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so I was just like super dubious. And I was like, I don't really I don't make videos on multiplayer servers really. At the time, I was doing these super hostile maps, which are basically survival maps where you're trying to explore and gather materials. And it kind of takes place in a creationist universe where God wants you dead.
Mm.
And so, I kind of, it was one of those things where, I kind of had to approach playing Minecraft like a Greek hero idiot, where I'm just like, you got me that time, but, I'm still coming.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, when I was invited to join Hermitcraft, I didn't think it was going to be anything. I was just genuinely curious. I was like, what's the angle here?
Yeah.
I'll give it a try, and I was curious. I was like, "Is this a new kind of scam?"
No,
Huh.
hey, that
You know?
you got your guard up.
Yeah.
I'm the same
Oh,
way.
yeah, definitely.
Anything that sounds too good to be true typically is. So this is
Yeah.
good that it worked out.
But that was like, so you got invited before it ever really kicked off, right? You were like day one OG Hermitcrafter?
No.
No. Okay.
He was 5 weeks into season 1. I was the
Oh,
first person
wow.
invited to join the server who was not a founding member,
Okay.
because after a little over a month, Generic B, he's like, "I've got the builders and I've got the redstoners, but, like, there needs to be, you know it's not enough to just take 2 kinds of paint and put them in the same can. You gotta stir, right?"
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he kinda brought me in with the hope that my kinda cowboy, just weird approach to Minecraft, would kinda shake things up a little bit and kinda help, get everybody kinda out of their comfort zones maybe, because the
Mhm.
point of a SMP server is to get people interacting with each other,
Yeah.
and things like that. And, so, yeah, I was brought in to be a disruptive influence, and over time, that has become increasingly less necessary. It's been made clear to me. So I've dialed that back a bit. I still get into trouble sometimes, and Cleo is always just like, "Joe, how did you not realize that that was too far?" And I'm like, "This is what I was brought here to do. I don't know, man. I'm just doing my best." So, yeah, I never saw Hermitcraft becoming what it was, but I only even really started on YouTube because I wanted to practice being funny.
Yeah.
And the local comedy club had this great deal where if you wanted stage time to practice stand up, you could get 3 minutes of stage time if you brought 4 friends and they each bought an entree and 2 drink tickets. And I was like, I can't do that.
That's smart.
I
That
can't
is.
afford that. So I was like, I guess I'm gonna go on YouTube and make some dumb videos to practice being funny. And you know, so I didn't anticipate that YouTube would end up becoming such a big part of my career.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like revenue wise, YouTube, I barely make anything on ad revenue. I don't even cover half my health insurance bill on YouTube revenue most months. A lot it's streaming tips and Patreon. It's
Mm.
direct viewer support that really make what I do possible. So like when people ask what I do, a lot of times I say I'm a busker. I don't know if you guys have that word in
Busker.
business.
No,
No.
no,
No.
what
What
is
does that mean?
It's an entertainer who like puts out like a hat or a violin case, and
Okay.
people throw money in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I see. Okay.
Like
Yeah.
that is basically my business model, and that's why I'm sure if some of your viewers compare like my statistics on Twitch or YouTube or whatever with some of the other hermits, it's like, wow, these other people 10 times, 100 times as much views or whatever as Joe, but like realistically, that shouldn't be what creative people are focused on. You should be focused on making good art and doing so in a way that your audience actually appreciates it enough that you can live a financially sustainable lifestyle, you know?
Mhm.
Like, I'm not trying to be rich and famous. I'm trying to cover my health insurance and my rent, you know?
And do what you
And I'm
love.
doing
And do what
okay.
you love and
Yeah.
And
enjoy
do
the
what I
ride.
love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you
Yeah.
can get wrapped up in worrying about the numbers and lose the passion because they're not going the way you want them to go and all that stuff. But yeah, as long as you're
Mhm.
able to cover, keep a roof over your head and food on the table, and you're able to produce what you like to produce and have people support you so that you can keep going, then I mean that's living the dream in
Yeah.
my mind, right?
Yeah, and he's
Mhm.
doing, and it's exactly what you're saying. It's
Yeah.
chasing, it's being a part. Your passion is what is pushing the vehicle forward. And I've
Mhm.
had a handful of collaborations with you, Joe, on the Hermitcraft server, and every single one of them has just been an absolute delight. And it's
I'm
so
so
funny
glad.
because it's like you're like the second I'm in the same vicinity as you on the Hermitcraft server, it's just relaxing, and it's just whatever we're going to talk about, that nobody is overthinking anything, and it's just going to actually there you made one of my bloopers one time where Doc was, so me, Doc, and Cleo were in my pyramid, and Doc was talking about the ore snatcher stuff. And you made some sort of joke on, did he replace it with lapis? Like replace a block with lapis, like this, as in this is what I would have done. He's like, no, and he said deep slate, and Joe says, well, that's not funny. And I just the way you said it was so funny to me. He's just, well, that's not funny. You were so disappointed in the decision that the prankster had made that you were just like, what a lost opportunity. It was so awesome.
I mean, a lot of great art can come from acknowledging other people's wasted opportunities. Like Edgar Allan Poe's poem "The Raven"
I love
was
it.
written because he read a poem by one of his rival writers or authors or whatever about a talking bird, and he's like, "That's the worst poem about a talking bird. That's such a great idea. I could write a better poem about a talking bird." Just like
I
bashes
love the
the thing out.
Raven. I love the Raven.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's spite. That's spite and disappointment.
Well, but see, that's who, I mean, that's who Poe was. And that's what's so funny is when he was hired to read a new piece at a gathering, and what they paid him was like $50, and he was so disappointed. He read a poem that he wrote when he was in the like third or fourth grade.
Wow.
And everybody's like was so disappointed. He's like, well, pay me better. Like he was
Wow.
very, so you just nailed who he is. I want to find out something interesting about you, Joe, because you gave us a little bit of fodder in regards to and who Joe is, which is interesting. Just a little behind the curtains, okay? When we invited Joe to the show, he said, "Well, what are we going to talk? What's the subject?" I said, "Joe's the subject," and he says, "Well, I'm kind of a master there." So, you got your marriage was in a courthouse. Yeah, actually, I'm going to stop. You tell me the story of the marriage, because this I got to hear the deep dive on this.
Yeah, so I got married recently, and we had a courthouse wedding. Part of the thing about marrying somebody from another country in the United States with the immigration process is that, like, the immigration process can take between like 12 months and 2 years. But once they approve the fiance visa, you basically have to get married like right now.
Wow.
There's like a
Mm.
time limit after which, if you don't get married, you have to restart the whole process, right? So, we basically had a bunch of plans lined up with places where it's like, okay, I know the owner of this bar and the owner of the bar next door. So we'll do our reception at these two tiny bars that are next to each other. And we'll find out when the wedding is when we get the visa approved. In terms of the venue for the wedding, I wanted to do the wedding at the chapel at my alma mater, Vanderbilt University, but they weren't doing any events that month because they were renovating. But we didn't know what month the wedding was even going to be until we got the visa approved. So it's like, okay, we're doing the courthouse wedding. And also, I had two of the guests were also technically legally allowed to marry somebody in the state of Tennessee. So
Hmm.
at the point where we've got people flying in from England and stuff for the wedding, I'm like, we are getting married on this day. I don't care if there's a bomb threat at the courthouse. We will have one of my friends marry us at one of the bars at the reception. We're doing this today. But yeah, so anyway, we get to the courthouse for the wedding, and they're like, okay, you need to go to this courtroom. And so we go to this courtroom, and it's us, and we've got maybe 40 or 50 people in our party, which
Wow.
I got the impression from the judge's assistant that like a lot of people who do courthouse weddings don't necessarily have like a whole
Yeah.
bunch of friends and
Yeah.
family.
It's like
but, like,
5 people
Yeah.
typically. Yeah.
yeah, but there was another group with 24 people there that were also like dressed up. Now, granted, like that guy I think was into like a tuxedo T-shirt.
Yeah.
That said groom on it. But you know, so we showed up though, and we're like, okay, this is probably the right courtroom or whatever. Nashville's courthouse is huge though. There's like 4 floors of courtrooms, and so we're waiting. The judge's assistant comes like out of the stairwell and is like, actually, the judge can't get out of this case right now. It's running long, so she's putting everybody on recess and is gonna just jam through these 2 weddings. So you
Wow.
guys just need to come down real quick. And we're like, okay, we start following her. She's like, no, you guys can't take the stairs. They're for staff only. And so then like we've got like 6 dozen people waiting at the
Oh
elevators
my
to go
God.
down 3 floors to the
Oh.
right courtroom. And the judge's assistant's waiting there and is like, okay, she's not going to call the recess until everybody's already inside and seated. So you guys need to be quiet because they're still taking testimony. And like, so as we walk in, there is a vehicular homicide case going on.
Wow.
And, you know, there's like this person testifying like, I was driving down the road at 10 p.m. at night at a speed of 35 miles an hour when I saw headlights in the rearview mirror and like
Wow.
super serious stuff. And, you know, so then, you know, he concludes this testimony and the judge is like, okay, so now I'm going to call a recess and we're going to move on to something a little bit more upbeat.
Oh man.
That does just jams through 2 weddings real quick. But no, it was actually really nice. The courtroom itself was beautiful. They let us take pictures in a courtroom next door afterwards. And so we got to take a picture like with my spouse, like in the judge's chair and me leaning on it and stuff like
Oh
that.
That's
wow.
cool.
But yeah, no, the
Yeah.
judge was great. Gave 2 separate little, like, just, you know, 3-minute little speeches about the importance of marriage and, you know, trying not to screw it up, that sort
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
thing. And so yeah, no, it was fun. And I have always heard people talk about courthouse marriages derisively, but like I'm glad we did it that way. And I
Yeah.
was really pleased. So
Well,
It sounds
that's
like with the quick turnaround that you had to do, it wouldn't allowed you to do anything like
yeah.
overly,
Yeah.
you know,
Stress.
planned, you know.
Yeah.
So that's good that you're able to pivot and get it done. Congratulations on the
Yeah,
marriage
Thank
and being
you.
newlywed. So, you know what I just realized, Skizz?
What?
Typically, when we have like YouTubers on and they have like screen names, like you know,
Yeah.
like we're like, oh, how'd you come up with that, Joe? Could you please tell us how you came up with your screen name, your username
Oh.
in Minecraft, please?
First and last
Yeah.
name.
Yeah, sure. So my father was Joseph Benedict Hills, and I was named Joseph Benedict Hills Jr. And so, you know, I looked at it, I was like, well, I got to make a name for myself. And so when I first started making anything and publishing it online, I started making comics with one of my friends in college. I was like, okay, there's a college football player in Tennessee named Joe Hills, and he's killing me on Google right now. So I've got to publish under my own name starting now, or I'm going to get buried by this guy forever. And so then a few years later, Stephen King's son, Joseph Hillstrom King, starts
Oh,
publishing
man.
stuff under the name Joe Hill. And
Uh-oh.
I was absolutely incredulous, you guys. I was like, oh
Oh,
my God,
no.
you've got to be Joe King. But anyway, I really couldn't have made a better choice, because if I didn't stake that early, I would have never been able to get started after King's son, you know, was publishing as Joe Hill. So
Well, and
Yeah.
it's what is the 3 letters afterwards? Joe Hills.
Oh, on your actual YouTube channel, you have
oh,
3
sure, yeah.
letters
On my actual
afterwards.
YouTube channel, there are 3 letters. So TSD is Team Snow Day. That
Okay.
is the group that I was making webcomics and the Pitfalls and Penguins tabletop role-playing game with.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. I've
Interesting.
honestly, I've seen it. Obviously, I've been to your YouTube channel many a times, and I've seen it there. And I for some reason, I just never questioned it. You know, I
Yeah.
was like, oh, there's just because some people you come up with, and you're like, oh, this channel is taken or whatever, and you just like
Yeah.
add letters and numbers. I wasn't sure if it was actually significant, so that's good to know.
Well, it is.
Well,
I like
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, and I will say too that when I started on YouTube, we had about 2,000 readers of our comic every week. It was a weekly comic. And when I put out my first few YouTube episodes of me playing Minecraft, I was getting 200 viewers every episode. mostly people who came over from that Team Snow Day work. And so to them, like, okay, it's the same guy.
Hmm.
But, and the thing is with YouTube, if you have, when you're starting out, 200 views consistently per episode, you're already ahead of a lot of people.
Yep.
Mhm.
And so that kind of gave me a huge head start. And I didn't feel like at the time it slowed me down at all. Even though we haven't actively published anything in years, probably about a decade at this point, I don't see any reason to change the name or whatever. It's printed on 1,000 business cards I've given out at conventions over the last not few
Yeah.
decades, but over the last 15 years now or so. So it just feels like, why change it?
It's crazy to think. I mean, you just said 15 years or so that you've been kind of in the game. And Hermitcraft
Mhm.
we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary not too long ago, right? So you've been on Hermitcraft for 10 plus years now.
I
Can you,
think about 12. I think it
yeah,
might
coming up
be
on
we
12
might be
probably.
coming up on your 10-year anniversary on Hermitcraft,
Right?
actually.
Yeah, probably. I did look that up, but in your opinion, like how has Hermitcraft changed in those we'll call it 12 years
Yeah.
for you? Like tell me what felt different about, the good old days, the season 1 days versus like how it's evolved in front of your eyes, because I came in kind of partially through in season 3. So
Mhm.
I kind of missed like the origin story, if you will, of Hermitcraft. But I was a viewer. I was a fan of Hermitcraft back then. And so when I came in, I was kind of already fanboying over all of you guys. But I kind of want to just hear from somebody that's been there since almost the very beginning, like how has it changed over time in your opinion?
Sure. We were always the scrappy upstart, and that's the biggest thing I worry we're gonna lose. I feel like if we can't keep being flexible and rolling with the punches and going where we wanna go creatively, we're gonna have problems,
Hmm.
And like, I tried to explain this to Skizz when we were hanging out after the charity stream, and I feel like I unintentionally came across as like weirdly threatening. So apologies for that, Skizz.
I
But
didn't pick up on that.
oh, okay, good, because you kind of got defensive, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
man, I screwed that up. But like, I was trying to say, like, I was really glad we were bringing in people who still have day jobs, who are still
Mm.
connected with our audience in that way. And, um, I really feel like it's great to bring in, like, obviously, Joel has incredible experience on YouTube, super passionate, talented Minecrafter. I'm not saying anything bad about him, but in order for Hermitcraft to work, we also need people who don't play Minecraft 8 hours a day joining
Mhm.
us, right?
Mm.
We need people who are out there connected with that other part of the world outside of our daily experience to kind of keep us grounded, And I feel like you coming in was absolutely fantastic in terms of helping us maintain that, hey, I'm fighting to become an artist thing.
Mm.
Like, because when Hermitcraft was founded, Generic B didn't tell us this, but he was basically using it as a portfolio piece to get into Mindcrack, which was the original Minecraft SMP created by Good. And so once Generic B got invited to Mindcrack, he left. That was why we had this whole power vacuum anyway. But we kind of had to decide, what are we trying to be? Are we all trying to go join Mindcrack too? Well, that might not have been a good goal, because a bunch of the Mindcrack guys ended up joining us after they fell apart, right?
Hmm.
We got Etho, we got Doc, we got Beef. Um, so what are we? Who are we? And we just kind of said, like, we're gonna just try and make the coolest stuff we can. And I don't think we've lost that, but I do think that upstart, insurgent, on the rise, guerrilla artist thing is something that you can lose if you get too comfortable. Like, I've only went full time about a year before Impulse did. But for people who have been doing YouTube full time for 10 years, that's gonna put you in a different headspace,
Mhm.
if you're not careful. And so, it's important for us to try and get out there. And also, I think streaming has been fantastic for keeping us in touch with the viewers and their experiences, you know? Like, I think every day about my old desk job when I'm streaming at 8:30 in the morning. I'm thinking, I'm so fortunate that my viewers would rather pay me to be here making a stream than for me to be sitting there designing a database while listening to a stream, right? You
Yep.
know, it's um and so me being part of their workday helps me remember that time that I spent in the, more professional workforce.
That's a really, really astute observation because I'm
Mhm.
realizing I get a lot of that too. When I'm streaming, I see people in chat saying, Skizz here helping me get through the workday. They're at their desk and they're listening,
Mhm.
or they have me up on a monitor. I'm always worried I'm going to get somebody in trouble, but
Uh-huh.
I can't control everything.
Yeah.
But I get it. I get a lot of people, and when I hear those things, I'm able to, because I was working the corporate job not that long ago. I have not been full
Oh,
time
sure.
very long. And so it's still very, very fresh to where I still feel like I have projects due at my old job. And
Mhm.
when they say things like that, it just brings me back to all those different stresses and those things that I just couldn't care less about, and it just brings me all the way back to that world I just wasn't really loving. And I'm like you, I feel very, very fortunate every single day when I do my morning walk every day. I make sure to remind myself that blessed am I to have this life. And it may not last forever, but it's here now, and I'm going to enjoy where I'm at now.
Yeah,
Keeps
yeah,
you
I do the
grounded.
same
Mhm.
thing. Like, I have this studio now built in my backyard, so I can physically leave my house. I mean, well, it's only 10, 20 feet away from the house, but
Yeah.
at least it's a
Mhm.
separate structure, and my wife can have her space during the day, and I have my space. And on my way out the door, I don't like tell myself I'm going to work. I tell
Yes.
myself I'm gonna go play video games
Yeah.
and have fun, basically.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm going to play games, and then you
Yeah.
kind of get that in your head. And I think that helps to not make this feel like a job. And that
Mm.
is, I think, what people, I would assume, want to experience, because
Yeah.
they're trying to escape their jobs. I don't know about you, Joe, but like when I
Mhm.
was back in a cubicle, I used to keep my phone off to the side, hidden behind the cube wall, so that I could keep a stream up, and it would get me through the day. Did you ever find yourself when you were working a desk job trying to catch a stream of anybody that you watched back then?
I was constantly listening to podcasts, and there were some YouTube shows and streams and stuff. Yeah, I just, put on because the sort of work I was doing didn't always necessarily require my full attention,
Hmm.
but like I didn't really have to be sneaky about it. The places I worked, like everybody had music or whatever on, like, people wore headphones. It
I
wasn't
just
a
I just assumed if my
problem.
boss walked in and saw me like watching a Minecraft stream, he would be like, "What are you doing?" You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I kind of had it off to the
I
side.
didn't even hide it, dude. I had one of my monitors full just playing poker. Like I wasn't playing, I was just
Yeah.
watching poker, like poker videos. And my boss would come over and be like, "Do you have to have that up?" I'm like, "Is it a problem?" He's like, "I guess not." You know what I mean? Because it's just like I'm doing everything that's being asked of me. I'm gonna do this at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, and I would scale it based on the intensity of the task I was working
Yeah.
on. Like there were certain tasks, I'm just like, I'm putting on the Scottish Parliament. They're always talking about something, whatever,
Yeah.
That's an interesting
you know.
choice.
So yeah, if my boss walks in and see me watching C-SPAN, it's just like, why do you have that on? I just needed some background noise that wasn't going to distract me too much. Okay,
Yeah.
you know.
Perfect. And now people are doing that for you.
Yeah.
They're you hear that on, I'm sure you hear it just as much as we do. They're watching your streams to help get through the day, like we were talking about. Now, I want to talk a little bit about your streaming strategy because
Giggles right away.
no, this is great because I kind of feel like in a way you were ahead of your time as far as like putting yourself on as many platforms as you could.
Mhm.
And you weren't one of the people that like signed a contract with Twitch or YouTube that had exclusivity clauses to where you could only stream to Twitch or YouTube. Now they've dropped those, so we're allowed to multi-stream. But you never signed those contracts, so you were allowed to put yourself in as many places as you want to. And it seems to be that's worked well for you. You've kind of garnered an audience from multiple angles.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about that experience because I just started. Like I literally just this week started streaming to both YouTube and Twitch, and trying to follow two different chats at the same time has been a difficult thing for my brain to keep up with. But you've been doing it for years, so I want to pick your brain a little bit. And
Sure.
how has that been a good thing for you? And how do you manage to keep up with people talking in multiple places?
Sure. So I actually started streaming before I started on YouTube. I've been streaming since 2008.
Oh wow.
And yeah, so I've seen a lot of streaming services live and die, right? Because like I started off on like Ustream, then I went to Justin TV. Justin TV eventually got bought by Twitch. I was on Mixer, which is dead now. I used to stream on Twitter at one point. Like I've been all over the place. And the big thing that I kind of approached all of this with was I don't trust any platform with my art. I'm the one who makes the art, and the audience is the one that appreciates the art. The platform is just the most convenient set of pipes at the moment, but like
Mhm.
I need to be as platform agnostic as possible. And so, yeah, I started multi-streaming originally back in the Mixer days because I had made the jump entirely to Mixer. I did not like the Amazon acquisition of Twitch. It really did not make me happy. And I never signed an exclusivity agreement with Mixer either, which is nothing against Matt Salsamendi. I talked to him multiple conventions in person. He seems like a great guy. But at the end of the day, most of these exclusivity agreements had most of your money being routed through their platform. And like if somebody buys a sub on Twitch for $5, I don't get that $5. I would get around half, maybe
Hmm.
60%, depending on how good my contract is. If somebody sends me $5 on PayPal, I get like 4.95, right? Like, so in terms of me having a smaller audience and being sustainable as a creator, I can have half the audience of everybody else and make the same amount of money. And
Mm.
so that has been a big thing for me is people are like, Joe, you're going to hit a tipping point someday where it makes more sense to go with, take Twitch's 50% or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not there yet. So, um, anyway, though, with Twitch and Mixer, I had switched over entirely to Mixer, and a bunch of people I ran into at conventions were like, I hate that you stopped streaming. And I was like,
Oh,
"I didn't stop streaming. I'm over on Mixer. I post about it on Twitter all the time." And they're like, "Oh, I don't really use Twitter. Oh, I didn't realize that you had made the jump." And so I went and figured out how to multi-stream. At the time, I had 5,000 followers on Twitch, and I was like, "I need to let those 5,000 people know to come find me on Mixer." And so I just got in the habit of multi-streaming, and I was like, I'm not gonna set a hard deadline for cutting off Twitch. I'm just gonna do it indefinitely. And next time Amazon does something terrible to the unions or whatever, I'm just gonna say, okay, that was it. I'm done. And I did occasionally say I'm taking a break from Amazon this week because I don't like what they're doing in their packaging plant or whatever. But I never actually completely cut that cord. And so one day somebody's like, "Joe, congratulations on hitting 50,000 followers on Twitch." And I'm like, "There's no way I have 50,000. I have 5,000, and I'm just streaming over there to let those people know that I'm still around." And apparently, while I was multi-streaming, I accidentally, like, multiplied my audience by 10 on
wow.
Twitch. And so then I was like, "Well, I guess I should probably keep doing that then." I don't know. Um, but yeah, like I said, I generally just kinda do whatever makes sense at the time, and it made sense to keep multi-streaming. Um, and reading 2 chats at the same time, I actually read 3 because 'cause I've also got a private chat for my Discord, for my Patreon patrons.
Wow.
And, you know, my undergraduate degree is in history. My first few full-time jobs were all in web development and database design. I can process a lot of text very quickly, and so that's not maybe for everybody, but it is a skill that can be practiced. In general, though, the chats kind of entertain themselves. It's easier for people to have side conversations, you know, and we talk about kind of different roles that we fit into. With the talk radio thing, there's kind of the idea that people put it on at work and listen to it and get stuff done. But then there's also the idea that we're kind of like Sam from Cheers, where we create a space for people to interact with each other. And
Mm.
yeah, they occasionally will talk to the bartender or the owner, and they'll listen if he's saying something that's interesting to them. But the relationships they have with each other scale in a way that relationships they have with us never will. And so creating spaces that are smaller, slower moving chats where people can make better connections with each other over time, because it's one of those things like, okay, somebody who meets each other in our chat isn't necessarily going to run off and get married, but they might run into each other at a convention and then be like, oh, I've seen you around for a year and a half in Imp's chat, oh, yeah, yeah. Hey, some of us are going to get dinner. You want to come with? People could actually create real relationships outside of our chats just because they're already familiar. Oh, they went to the Hermitcraft meetup at PAX and they recognized a username,
We
that
just
sort of thing.
had we just had that experience quite a lot at TwitchCon.
Yeah.
When we went to TwitchCon, there was like a whole group of people hanging out, and they were all just had met each other through like our chats,
Yeah.
and then they were like they got to talking on Discords and whatnot. That they were all going, and they just like, yeah, let's hang out at TwitchCon. Let's attend the meet and greets and the what did we do, the conference thing? What the stage?
The
What's it called?
panel.
The panel. Thank you. They came to the panel together, and they were all sitting together and stuff. And it was cool to see, like, yeah, relationships get formed through this environment that we've. I mean, we're there. They're there to watch, what we're doing and listen to us, but they're also there to meet like-minded people. It's
I
super cool.
love the bartender analogy. I love that. That's what it is. Because sometimes they actually do go off and get married. I mean, that's happened.
Yeah.
It has happened.
As well.
I've heard a couple of stories of that, which is wild.
And they make people. Like are we? You know what I mean? We're just playing a game here, and people are happening. And I think that's so cool because I'll see it even like when I'm streaming, because I'm notoriously known, Joe, as just being one of the worst readers of chat ever, and I am actively working on it. But I'm trying to do the best I can. But there's times where I'm so bad at it, I will look over and I'll see chat just having their own conversation with each other, which is awesome because the bartender's busy. He's at the other side of the bar right now, and they find out about each other and they support each other, and it's super touching.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm gonna use that.
So do you have like 3 different windows that you have to look at, or do you have them all funneling into the wow? So you're kind of like bouncing around, like, okay, let's check that one, like that one, that one, and you just kind of have it in your mind's schedule to check each one individually. Because like I said, I just started this week, and I found myself like reading my Twitch chat as normal, and then every once in a while I was like, oh yeah, I'm streaming on YouTube. How you guys doing? You know what I mean? And it felt so neglecting to them, and I was like, I'm sorry guys, I'm doing this, and then I figured out a way to combine them so that I had both Twitch and YouTube together, and then suddenly I'm like, okay, Twitch was already a little fast for me to keep up with, and then now I've got both YouTube and Twitch in there, and I'm like, I can't. It's just like I read half a sentence and it's gone. Oh, well, okay, this isn't gonna work.
Yeah, no, I would not do that. I tried that myself, and I found I'd rather have slower moving windows, especially because they're having conversations among themselves. Where the Twitch chat isn't talking to the YouTube chat, right? So the way I do it, I've got like Twitch up here, like in a box, like, and then directly below it, YouTube. Off to the side, I've got the Patreon Discord, which is generally kind of slower moving. That one, though, they're allowed to post images and stuff as well. And so, sometimes like the Redstone guys over there will be like, here's a diagram of what you're doing wrong, Joe. So that's actually really handy. And so I've got the Discord directly below the window that has my notifications with tips. And so I have to check that, right? And so, then I've just got Minecraft directly under the camera. So I'm looking straight into the camera when I'm playing the game, but I'm like looking off to the side when I'm talking to the chat. This is kind of a visual cue too for them of like what's going on. And you get better at it over time.
Yeah, good for you.
I might reverse course and like go back to split now that he mentions that, because it might make more sense.
It makes more sense, because then it's like otherwise it's like another dynamic of a threaded conversation. It's literally people who can't even see each other.
It's one more thing I got to pay attention to, because like as the chat's going, there's little icons, and it's like, okay, that's a Twitch icon, so they're talking on Twitch platform, and there's a YouTube icon, okay, they're talking on the YouTube platform. And it's like, okay, now I know which one they're at, but that's one more thing for my brain to process whilst reading the messages.
And to go back to the bar metaphor. This is like people talking across the bar to each other.
Yeah.
Now. Like, all like voices like,
Yeah.
woo!
It's pretty crazy.
It's too much.
Yeah, I know you have multi-stream for a long time and that you've got it down. You've got the process down. So I wanted to just pick your brain a little bit while we had you here.
Yeah.
And it was recommended as soon as I started streaming on multiple platforms. So like, you should talk to Joe. Because he's been doing it a long time. He's got it figured out. I'm like, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, he's going to be on the podcast. I might just, I might just wait till then.
Good opportunity. We got a pro.
Yeah, exactly. Much easier than talking through Discord chat.
I'm gonna have to do it. I'm gonna have to do it.
You gonna give it a go?
I think I'm gonna have to do it.
I'm still turning knobs and stuff, trying to figure it out, like we just talked about. But I like it. I think it's the way to go. You kind of like. It's like when you do make art, it is best to put it out in front of as many people as you possibly can, right? Because, you know, when you make art, it's, you know, the phrase in the eye of the beholder and all that kind of stuff. So you're not everyone's going to be invested in what you do. And that's okay. You know, you can be an acquired taste and that kind of thing. But the more people you put it in front of, the more chance that somebody is going to appreciate it. And that's kind of what my thought was on that. Let's just get it out in as many spotlights on it as possible, and then they can choose whether they like it and they want to come and hang out and stay for a while. So yeah, very smart, very smart.
Joe, you mentioned a few minutes ago, you just very briefly mentioned the gig with doing stand-up. You get 3 minutes if you bring friends. But really what I pulled from that mostly was the fact that you had an interest in doing stand-up. Is that something that you wanted to pursue?
It was, and it's something I ended up only doing one amateur night one time, because it just was too hard as a parent to get out of the house.
Yeah.
Realistically, I needed to focus on activities I could do from home. When my daughter was born, her mother had just been accepted into a PhD program in biophysics, which is very time intensive. And so I was basically grad students don't make a lot of money. So even though there technically was like a small stipend, I was the primary breadwinner and the primary caregiver for our child. And I was trying to find ways to express myself creatively. And there was no way to afford a babysitter or count on her mother being there for me to go out and do stuff like this. And so just focusing on making videos and streaming ended up being a better way for me to refine my skills over time. And,
Okay.
you know, maybe one day I'll get back into it. But, you know, realistically, I'm just happy going with the flow.
Sure. But tell me about the time that you did do it, because I've always, a big part of me has always wanted to try my hand at stand-up. I've been told I should, but I just don't have the stones. So walk me through it.
So I will say I did work on a set. And, you know, it was like about 3 minutes. And, you know, so you spend a week or so writing jokes, get them in the order you want, practice, you know. And then you go out there to a amateur night, and the amateur night I went to was like 7 or 8 people there, plus the organizer. Nobody in the audience who was not actually there to practice, right?
Okay.
Except for my then wife, who came with me, because we got a babysitter that night. And, you know, it was one of those things where you get up to a microphone and you try to tell your jokes from memory, and you got a notebook in case you don't. And it was a very low pressure thing. You know, I felt like I did pretty well, but I also was just kind of like, okay, there's no path forward with this, because if I actually wanted to start like booking gigs, like let's say I kept working at it and getting better, in order to book gigs, I'm going to have to like go out at night. And then we're paying for a babysitter, then, you know, and so it was just one of those things where I just kind of was like, okay, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I put myself out there, and I'll come back to it later if it makes more sense later, but it doesn't make sense right now.
Sure. Okay.
For you though, you know, your kids are off to college, might be a great time to start.
I'm too afraid. maybe one day.
You used to. What did you used to have? Was it a little tape recorder
Yeah, I
thing?
used to-
And then every time you came up with a joke, you'd put it on a tape recorder.
Yeah, that's a testament to how long ago I did that. It was an actual tape recorder.
Well, I had the mini tapes, so
Yeah.
it wasn't like super long ago.
Yes, it was.
I mean, two decades, 3 decades maybe, but it would be interesting to find that in a vault somewhere, wouldn't it?
Oh God, it's probably just
You know?
awful stuff.
Do you have your old jokes somewhere? Do you have them written down that you could pull them out and be like, these are the jokes I told that day?
I am pretty sure they are one of the black notebooks over on that shelf. I couldn't tell you which one because I'm not a very organized person, so I couldn't find them like right now.
Yeah, that's
But
okay. It would just be
yeah.
fun someday to do that. Hey, maybe that's you know, do you ever do like rewards for your viewers? Like, hey, if we get to this milestone or whatever, I'll read you the jokes I read on stand-up night.
Well, here's what I was gonna say, Skizz, was that maybe we should make us doing 3-minute stand-up sets a reward at a next charity event.
Oh my God.
We
That's a
take
zero
turns at the mic.
expectation thing right there. That's perfect.
I will think about it. That's what I'll
Oh,
do.
that's
mean-
perfect.
Stand-up comedy is very different comedic science than just being witty and silly and goofball. You know
It
what I
is.
mean?
It's
an
completely
actual, like it is. Did you ever watch The Marvelous Miss Maisel?
I have not.
Oh, Joe, you would love this. It's like the way that they break down the comedic science of it. It's about a female comedian, and her agent is played by Alex Borstein, who does Lois's voice in Family Guy. And they are basically they'll go do a set, and she'll say a line a certain way, and then they revisit it, and they're like, change this inflection. Very next show, you'll see her change it a little bit or change the pause just a little bit. Like it's like a recipe of humor, and that's just a level of that is kind of well over my head. I appreciate that people find me funny, and I think I can be witty on the spot and stuff. But when it comes down to sitting down and manufacturing humor, I don't know how I would, like. I just don't know if I have that tool set, you know.
Well,
but
it's something you never had time for.
Yeah,
You never had time for it when you were juggling the day job, but now that you're full time, this seems like exactly the sort of thing to start saying, like, "Hey, during a stream, I'm gonna do a few. Hey, I'm gonna be recording this segment later for Hermitcraft. Let me give you guys a few of the jokes. I'm going to try them a few different ways." You know, I actually record a lot of my Hermitcraft stuff on stream, and I'll do 2 or 3 takes.
Me too.
And it's, you know, sometimes the first take I nail it, and that's the one I use. But I found even going back and doing 2 or 3 takes, and what I'll try and do sometimes is if I'm like not happy with the first 2, like I'm like, those are terrible, I'll just do a 3rd take where I just completely like will switch voices and I'll do it completely wrong. I'll be like, I think this redstone is basically like pulling a rabbit out of a hat. And, you know, just like just do something stupid.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, well, that one definitely isn't it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay. So now I've mentally reset. I got that palate cleanse.
Yeah,
You know, come at it again, you know. Just you know, find ways to make the time.
Yeah.
I admire you both because you're able to record clips for YouTube while streaming. I suffer, like, I don't know if it's anxiety or what, but like already when I hit the record button, I get like a little bit of anxiety, like recording anxiety. And when I'm streaming, I get a little bit of streaming anxiety. So when I'm recording while streaming, it's just overbearing and I cannot form a sentence to save my life. Like I cannot record clips on while streaming.
Your thing, Impulse, and if you can just do this one thing, you'll be introduced to who Impulse really is. Stop trying to be perfect. Just stop it. Just stop it. Stop trying to be perfect and just go.
I like that idea though, because I didn't really ever think of like, oh, if I screw up a take, just redo it live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think, oh, because I'm live, I get one shot.
Yeah.
Where if I'm recording not live, sometimes I'll have 10 takes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes I'll just be like, no, scrap the whole thing. The whole thing was stupid. It's so like, yeah, maybe if I just allow myself that space to be like, you know, it's okay if I flub a take in front of this live studio audience.
Yeah.
You know, because like
That's
you think
exactly
about,
how you got to look at
Yeah,
it.
you think
Family
about-
Matters and Full House. They filmed them in front of a live studio audience. I Love Lucy. They do 3-4 takes.
Yeah.
Lucille Ball is way better at this than we are, and she needed 4 takes. I'll take 4 takes.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way. So maybe I'll give it another go because that is something too that because
Save time doing that.
Yeah,
dude.
because we are juggling, right, between being streamers and YouTubers, and most people would just assume that's the same job. It's really not. But it is a good idea to take some time while streaming to be able to contribute towards the video making process as well. And without that time, like it's been a real struggle for me to make videos because I'm streaming sometimes 5 times a week, you know, and that's like half a day each. So to be able to, I don't know, I want to say double dip, but maybe that's not the right term. But to be able to kind of double up on what you're able to produce while streaming is a great idea. And it's something that I aspire to be able to do. And you both do it like flawlessly. Like you've been doing it for a while, and you've been able to use content from your streams in a lot of your content that you make. And so I admire that quite a bit, and I strive to be able to pull it off.
You'll like it.
If it makes, go on.
No, I was just saying he'll like it.
I was gonna say, if it makes you feel better, this came from failure on my part. The reason that I had to learn to do this is because I was sleep deprived as a new parent. And every time I tried to record when I wasn't streaming, there'd be something wrong with my microphone or the video or something. And because I'm recording exactly what the viewers are seeing in OBS, like I switch over to recording mode, all the overlays are gone, everything. So if there's something wrong, the stream will start screaming at me, Joe, we can't hear you. Joe, you left this overlay on. Like, there was one recording I did, and so I still have to do collab recordings, occasionally where we're doing something that's not recorded on stream, and I'm so paranoid I'm gonna screw something up. Like, the most recent time was like 3 years ago. Cleo and I recorded something, and I'm like, well, I accidentally left my webcam on in the corner. And Cleo's like, well, that's fine. Like sometimes YouTubers have their faces. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't have a shirt on. So we need to re-record that. It's just like, but like, I would have never done that if I had a live streaming audience.
Yeah.
So you wear shirts during the streams. Okay, that's good.
Yeah. No, I mean, in fairness though, I do wear shirts like this. Because Twitch has a policy. I'm a very contrarian person. Twitch says you're not allowed to wear transparent shirts on stream, and I say no. I'm gonna wear something that chromas right out.
Is that why you have so much green on today? You have a green hat. You have green tape. It looks like around the headband of your headphones.
Yeah.
They're not a sponsor. They don't get their logo on my stream.
And I think when we first joined the call with you, you actually had the filter on.
He had
the green screen filter.
He's got
that makes you
So
Joe Passity level right there. That was weird. That just kicked up
I see that.
a Windows bar on the bottom of our screen somehow when you did that. How does
it do that? Who knows?
I don't know.
Who cares? So this is all right. So okay, we're gonna give the people what they want. This is gonna happen. Joe, I'm gonna put you on the spot, buddy. We're gonna go all the way back to the court case. And when you and I when we faced off as opposing lawyers against each other, what were you thinking with your argument that Doc is a big baby? Where did you think that was going to go, dude? I gotta know.
I genuinely really looked at it from the perspective of B-dubs will only let Doc win if it's funnier for Doc to win.
Okay.
Because Doc had so much evidence against him. This was basically an unwinnable case. Doc had killed this poor animal in front of Cleo. There was video evidence about it. Doc bragged about it. There's audio evidence of him bragging about it. There's no question about the facts. Okay. And so B-dubs ruling that Doc is in fact a big baby and cannot be held liable for this was the only thing I could see. That was the only path where B-dubs might rule against Cleo in favor of Doc. It was an impossible case. And it just had to be as entertaining as possible. And that was the angle I went for.
Okay.
No, and Doc didn't know anything about it. That was a surprise on the day.
Yeah.
That was so
I warned him. I warned him, Doc. I'm like, okay, Doc, I've studied military strategy. Lao Tzu says when you're strong, you have to appear weak. You're the strongest guy on this server. So we're going to come in and we're going to appear weak and we're going to win this. And so then when I actually start saying Doc's a big baby, he's just like, what? He's like, that's what he meant.
That was great because it was you could tell this raw reaction
so funny
that he had to the whole thing.
He was so visceral about it too, especially when he got his sentencing, and he stood up. He said, "What? No!" Like he was seriously like, there are limits, man. Like he was seriously like this. He's really upset. This is delicious.
Well, that's what makes Hermitcraft great,
Yep.
in my opinion. That's what makes us stand out from all sorts of other like scripted stuff on the internet. Is we're genuine artists who are willing to put emotional stakes into our work.
Yeah.
Minecraft is a game that has emotional stakes because what you build can be destroyed by creepers, right? Stuff can happen to the things you get invested in.
Yep.
And we're amplifying that with this Hermitcraft, whole concept where sometimes viewers want to be like, oh no, nobody's feelings really got hurt. It's just a show. It's like, if we weren't investing our feelings into what we're making here, we wouldn't be making this good a show. It's, we say to the children like, oh yeah, we're all friends. And so that's why it's okay. But it's actually okay because we're all professionals.
That's what it
We're
is.
all-
It never crosses all the way over.
Right.
It never. It's not like there was any world where Doc was actually upset with B-dubs. That's not a thing.
Right.
His character
And I was not trying to intentionally hurt Doc either.
Of course not.
I genuinely believed this was the only way we could win. I knew there could be blowback if we did not win. But I found that an acceptable trade-off because otherwise I shouldn't have even taken the case. He was guilty. There was no way to win that otherwise,
Man, that was one of the funnest episodes I've ever made ever. And editing it too was just too much fun.
Yeah.
One day we'll go back. Then I built my courthouse my courthouse. I built my office, my firm, and
you lawyer firm, and then the next case comes along, you don't even get offered a job.
I know.
I didn't either.
Yeah, neither one of us did. I
felt like I
crushed
nailed
that
the
case.
interview.
Did you?
Like,
I wasn't even interviewed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
what the heck? I was like not even interviewed. But see, that's what I'm.
Well, I mean, that's part of it too. Give everybody a
Of
chance
course.
to experiment.
Well, maybe
with,
if I put some furniture in my law firm, I could
yeah,
actually
let people be comfortable.
Yeah.
Joe, I waltzed into your place the other day, and I needed a book. I forget which one. Bane of Arthropods, I think. And
we have so many of
you
those.
have the F tier. What I guess
F tier
books?
books and legal representation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I went in there. So I had went to Cleo's first looking for the book, and I found out it wasn't a S tier book; it was an F tier book. At Cleo's place, she was selling books for $3 a piece, and so I'm like, okay, well, Joe's probably gonna have them for like $5 diamonds, Joe. $5 diamonds for F tier books? What's that
Because
about?
Cleo's making bank in volume, right? Nobody wants the books I have to sell, and so just to cover like the land value, the property tax and stuff, I gotta have
You
the
hiked the
individual
price up.
It's
Well, let
gotta
me
co-
tell you, it worked because I bought
is
it.
an
I
F-
bought it anyway. You
What
know,
is that? What's an F tier book?
like okay, so you know the tier system,
Yeah,
like the rating
S
system.
is the top.
Yeah.
So like mending and
Yeah,
unbreaking.
and then as
3.
you go down, what is it? It's usually like A, B, C. So that's like the joke that it's so far down the scale. It's like not you don't even see the
He's
F tier
selling
listed
garbage
on
books. and
Yeah, they're
he's
total garbage.
and you bought it.
I bought it for five diamonds.
because if you need it, you really need that particular.
That's
book.
true.
But
That's exactly
really,
right.
I'll make one sale every 2 months. Like there's nobody needs any of those books ever, and it's not because of the prices. It's just because people don't need them.
Yeah, no, that was funny. I waltzed in and I'm just like, okay, and so these books are, lower tier, they're going to be cheaper. And I look at the price and I'm like, whoa, they're more money. What's Joe doing?
That's amazing.
No, that's funny. That's so good. But you're right. I mean, I bought it anyway because I absolutely needed it.
Yeah.
It
Hey,
worked out.
Tell me, Joe, a little bit about your building style. I haven't spent a lot of time with you in terms of building, but I did come across you some sort of I still don't know what it is, some massive water structure you were making. And I remember I hit you with what is the air thing? The blast?
The wind charge.
Wind
Yeah.
charge from wickedly far away. And it was right when you broke the glass in front of you and it came in and pecked you in the face. It was gorgeous. What was that? What was that structure? I still don't know what that is.
That might have been the aquarium I built around the remains of Doc's flood. So after that legal case, Doc assumed that I was the ore snatcher and then flooded about 20% of my area.
Oh, okay.
And so then I wrapped part of it with glass
Okay.
and left it as a monument for, because the viewers, when they get to the end of the season, they want to be able to visit Doc's flood.
Yeah. Fair. Okay, fair. All right.
But
Makes more
your
sense.
project this season
Huge.
is massive. Like you've dug, have you dug over 1 million stone already or something like
What?
that?
I think I'm at 2.87
Oh
million.
my
What?
gosh.
Are you kidding
That's
me?
insane.
I am not.
What are you doing? What?
I
am
literally, yeah. I read books out loud on Saturday night while I mine.
Wow.
And yeah, so this started because it used to be Saturday night was always kind of a weird night for the stream because there were some people who like, would go out and would be like, "Oh, I don't want to miss a stream." And I'd be like, "No, I want you to go out. I want you to go have fun with your friends. Here's what I'm going to do. Saturday night, I'm going to read from public domain stuff. So if you're like, "Oh no, I missed the stream. I guess I'll just go get a copy of The Raven and read it myself." Right? And so I started off reading poems and things like that. Short stories like The Cask of Amontillado, which works really well if you do like voices for Montresor and the other guy whose name I'm blanking on. But like, so Bill and Ted, Cask of Amontillado, that was a big fan favorite. And at one point somebody's like, "Joe, you could probably read an actual novel while you're doing this." I'm like, "No." But if I was going to, I'd pick Dracula. So I just started reading Dracula one Saturday night while I'm mining. And we ended up doing a chapter a week till we got through the book. And then now we're doing Moby Dick. Moby Dick has variable length chapters. So some weeks it's 6 chapters, some weeks it's 1. But yeah, it's been a good way to work at a very large scale and do grindy tasks that are like too boring to stream otherwise,
How are you mining and reading?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, I always have OBS directly below my Minecraft window. And so on the reading nights, I just put a web browser there with Project Gutenberg with the public domain work I'm reading. And I just kind of occasionally alt tab over and scroll down and then alt tab back. And yeah. But I mean, if you can read 3 chats
Yeah.
while you play
How many
Minecraft.
eyeballs do you have? I don't understand. How are you?
2.
How are you? Yeah.
Some people say 4.
Actually, yeah, so how I don't get it. How are you mining while not looking at the game that you're playing?
Well, mining is one of the most just mountaintop removal. Like I could not do complex redstone, and even stuff like putting stuff in and out of chests while reading kind of
Okay.
will cause me to stutter a little bit. But like I've got a full netherite pick in my bar and an empty inventory, and I'm just point toward a mountain and just start sweeping the mouse and the keys back and forth. Right?
Okay. Okay.
I jump occasionally. I've got jump on my foot pedal, so don't have to worry about that.
Fellow foot pedal user. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Impulse, thank you. That was one of the best recommendations. I really appreciate it.
You took it a step further though, actually, like putting jump and is sprint on there too or something. What else
Yeah,
do you
jump
have on
and
there?
sprint.
That's crazy.
Jump,
so he's
sprint, and
he's
mute.
dancing while he's playing, basically.
Yeah.
Like mine's just like muted and unmuted. So you're doing a lot more with your foot pedal than I am. When I played Vault Hunters though, I was doing that. I was dancing, because all the special things you can do in Vault Hunters, and so I put that on my pedals to do all the specials just because I can never remember hotkeys. I'm the worst with hotkeys. Don't make me assign hotkeys. I'll forget exactly what they are. So the pedals came in pretty clutch for that. And then I heard you got the pedals and you were doing the jump and the sprint. I'm like, whoa, imagine that. You're actually stomping on the ground every time you want to jump up. Like, it's great.
Well, not every time I want to jump up. Like normally I use the space bar, but
Okay.
Here's the thing is, so let's say that I need to place all the way to sky height or whatever, a bunch of coal blocks so that I can harvest them with a fortune pick, right? So if I've got my left hand on spacebar, right hand on the mouse to click, now I'm just sitting there looking at the computer with both my hands occupied. If I hit the spacebar with my foot on the foot pedal, and then I've got one hand on the mouse, other hand,
you can have a little swig.
There you go.
Yeah. And so, because I was just basically annoyed. I was like, when I'm sitting here placing 100 blocks straight up is when I should be taking a sip of my drink.
Yeah.
Why am I not doing that?
Yeah.
Okay, let's fix it.
All
There
right.
you go.
That makes sense.
Foot
That
pedals are
makes
fun.
sense.
Yeah, I love my Elgato foot pedals.
Yeah.
Hashtag not sponsored, but
Learned
they're great.
stuff. I learned a lot.
Yeah, I
today.
mean, and well, Skizz and I are drummers, so like the idea of I was always kind of infatuated with the idea of being able to use all 4 limbs to play video games. And so when those came out, and there was foot pedals before them, they weren't the inventors of using foot pedals on a computer, but
Sure.
they were innovative with how many buttons they have and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, this is my chance to try to like leverage a little bit of my ability to use all 4 limbs, to do accomplish something. But now I can do it in Minecraft. So yeah, it's been fun. Plus, I like my gadgets. Everybody knows I like my gadgets. So
Yep, always gets his stuff. Joe, one more thing I want to hear from you. What is this? What is this poll that you won on Tumblr? What is this about?
Oh, sure, sure. I'm going to be honest. I did not know what this was when it first started, and I think that actually helped me a lot. So apparently on Tumblr at one point, they had some sort of indie game sexy man contest, which apparently Tumblr defined sexy man to mean like most bizarre, cryptid, creepy thing. Right?
Jeez.
I didn't know that. So anyway, they announced Minecraft YouTube sexy man contest, and it's a poll with a bracket or whatever. And I'm just like, well, Scar's obviously gonna win this because he's running around the server topless in his volleyball Top Gun skin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Doc came and bothered me while he was like streaming, and this ended up in a recording. And I was like AFK at my base trying to find pictures of myself shirtless to post so I could compete with Scar. And Doc like blows me up or hits me with an anvil or something. And I start screaming at him about how I'm trying to find topless pictures of myself and he's not helping. And like, so that kind of went viral and initially helped me out. But then once I found out it was for like weird cryptid energy, I was just like, oh, never mind. I'm going to win this. Because like people will be like, oh yeah, so-and-so, does weird videos. I'm like, oh man, like I've been on YouTube since 2011 and I did all sorts of weird experimental stuff. Back in the day, like it's just like, oh, here is 10 videos of me rowing around in the ocean in Minecraft talking about different translations of the Tao Te Ching and how they relate to different Nintendo games. Here is me in a swimming pool reciting my most bizarre tweets about Star Trek The Next Generation. Here is this, here is that. And I'm just like, so I'm just pulling stuff out of the archives and absolutely nailed it. But yeah, I think that poll ended up having like over 1 million individual votes like throughout the course of the brackets, and it ended up being completely bonkers. Scar ended up in second despite not knowing what it was at all, and Cleo got third and eventually forgave me for that, or at least stopped complaining. I'm not sure which.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That is a absolutely bizarre little
I think
thing
I
to
caught
win.
wind of that when it was happening. I'm not on Tumblr, but I did catch wind
Yeah.
of that, and I got on there, and I think I got past round 1, maybe 2, and then I was out. I might have lost a mumbo or something like that. But
Look this up.
These things happen,
yeah,
Yeah.
that's fun.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. Thank you again for giving us your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. And you also mentioned that you actually you listen to this show, this podcast with your family. So I'm just loving the idea of you listening to your own podcast with your family. That's going to be really fun.
Oh yeah. And if I'm ever listening to this in the car with my daughter, just so you know, stop waving that Nintendo around. It's too bright. It looks like headlights in the mirror. Stop.
The what?
When she's on her Nintendo in the car at night, and you know how it lights up and you can't see anything? Yeah.
Oh, you just chastised her through the show. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you listen to your father, young lady.
Yeah.
Thank you, Impulse, for backing me up on this.
Yeah.
You bet. Oh man,
awesome.
Thank you so much, Joe. We'll let you get back to everything you got going on. Hopefully you didn't miss a stream or anything this morning, but we appreciate your time joining us on the show. It was great getting to know a little bit more about you. And it made so much sense. We didn't talk a lot about your relationship with Cleo, but maybe another time. And thanks again, man. Appreciate it.
Alrighty. Thanks for having me. It was a blast.
Thanks, man.